Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Welcome to the MMA Opinion Podcast. I nearly forgot the name of the podcast there for a second. My name is Liam O'Griffin. I'm joined as always by Mr. Paul O'D. And this week we're also joined by Mr. David Doran of Blood and Bandage podcast fame. David, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, lads. It's a pleasure.
And on this week's episode, we are going to look at Ottman Azaiter getting cut from the UFC, Dana White's war on streamers, Khabib on potential return, and we will look ahead to the UFC 257 card.
So, let's be getting on with... I fluffed it.
The only man that'll mess up his own self-announced catchphrase.
Was that it?
Oh my God, here we go. I said right off the bat.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
Are you still drunk right now? Are you still drunk or what? What's going on?
This is blue screen shit. Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass. I pulled that sumbitch out and I beat him over the head with it.
You can't stop this Beard Express. Choo-choo, motherfuckers.
If he was a girl, you would say he has a badonkadonk.
I'm cool with all the gods. Gods recognize gods.
All right, so we'll ignore that last bit there.
We're off to a stellar beginning anyway.
Stellar.
All right, news items. Let's go. Let's try and bury the past there.
We have to start with Ottman Azaiter anyway. Absolute lunacy.
Yeah. So, like, I have no idea of what happened here, so please do explain it to me.
Liam, do you want to take the floor on this one?
Well, we can refer to Mr. Andy Hickey's report on the MMA Opinion page. Let me get that on the screen here. Pretty much says it all. Where have we got it? So I'm just getting the page here for you guys. So Mr. Andy Hickey, one of the writers on the MMA Opinion cover, broke the story for us earlier. So Ottman Azaiter has been cut from the UFC per Dana White. He and his team cut their wristbands and gave them to people outside the bubble. Those people then scaled the hotel balcony to gain entry and put the whole card at risk. All of this caught on camera as per the UFC president. The UFC never fails to amaze. So, I mean, like, basically, we know that the UFC is only running because of this bubble that they've created where, you know, they test all their fighters and staff, and everybody that's involved in the show is within this bubble. They've all been tested, and then they're just isolated from everybody. And then some muppet just brought someone from outside the bubble in, potentially infecting anybody who met on the way, and potentially putting the whole card at risk. Which
not only would have put the card at risk, if you think about this, if there was a widespread that somehow brought in coronavirus and went spread through the card and UFC staff, it could shut down all future events for the foreseeable. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Huge faux pas altogether. And not only was the fight cut, but also Ottman was actually cut from the UFC for his troubles. And I believe his brother is also... His brother's in hot water, yeah. I don't think he's officially being cut. But his brother Abu is on the kind of chopping block as well, because he was involved in all of this. But it's absolutely insane. Abu's only after one fight in the UFC, Ottman after two in the UFC, and both with serious potential as well. Both big knockout guys. And the weirdest part about it is they're not originally from that region, but they're based in that region, and they know how strict the laws are over there with regards to COVID and with regards to kind of sticking to the guidelines that are set over there. They could be in serious trouble litigiously over in Abu Dhabi.
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there any comeback from that? Like, do you reckon they'll ever get back into the UFC again, or is this like the Paul Daly smacking Josh Koscheck after the fight ends and like banned for life type of thing? Absolutely not. If you put a whole UFC card at risk, and not just any card, a Conor McGregor main event pay-per-view card at risk,
a cash cow, like,
you're cut, you're done. Your career with regards to UFC is completely over, and even the likes of Bellator, no, he's an exciting prospect, but are you going to take on a guy with this kind of hanging over his head? I suppose they might. Look, it's no news is bad news. The signing would definitely garner some attention, but
for the wrong reasons, maybe.
Yeah, 100%.
But isn't it interesting though that you have that situation with McGregor and the dolly and all that kind of stuff with Khabib, and he does that, And it's kind of,
So-
you can understand why that was a kind of not swept under the rug, but
So the difference here is obviously, look, without me trying to protect McGregor in a sense, obviously McGregor's a cash cow. He'll get away with more than anyone else will get away with it, and there's no two ways of calling that. That's the truth. The other side of it is we're in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, and he's flagrantly flouting laws and guidelines that are protecting people's health.
and enabling this whole enterprise to keep going, and this country to still provide us with this.
Yeah.
You know, there would be no UFC if it wasn't for the thing that they've worked out.
He put UFC's reputation on the line in a country that has been excellent to the
Very
UFC
generous, yeah.
during all this. Yeah, look, there's no way back from him. Absolutely
The other
no
thing
way.
is, what was in the bag that they brought in?
No idea.
I don't know either. I'm just asking the question. I'm hoping someone will answer me. I think it was the illegal streamer trying to get away from FBI surveillance.
What a segue! what a segue!
Smooth.
Yeah,
So-
we need to touch on this. Dana White is out of his fucking mind.
Yeah.
That interview is one of the most insane things I've ever seen in my life. And his eyes were glassing over, staring, saying, "We have men outside his house." What? Hang on, wait. What? You have men parked outside someone's house waiting to arrest him. He said he tapped his phone lines. He had full CCTV on his every movement. What the hell is going on?
But there's been I've seen a few times now on different feeds on Twitter, different reporters reckoning that Dana White specifically made it very, very specific so that a lot of individual streamers could possibly relate to it and think that, like, okay, Jesus, he's talking about me, I better not stream it. When in actual fact he was talking about nobody at all. It was just kind of like a general thing, and going from there. But I don't know, it sounded very specific, and
Look,
it was definitely creepy.
I'm of the same opinion. I think it's just scaremongering. But to come out and say we've tapped phone lines and that we're watching someone in collusion with the FBI. I mean, aren't the American government in trouble already for tapping up phone lines?
Yeah, a few years ago. Now,
Yeah.
a lot of our listeners and viewers are from the States, so they might...
Let us know in the
Let us
comments if you're more privy to this situation. But as far as I'm aware, the FBI can't be tapping anyone's phone lines without concrete evidence, or not concrete evidence, but
Plausible,
yeah,
whatever you call it.
yeah.
reasonable cause. Yeah, it's just absolutely mental.
So just to kind of bring some of the viewers in here, David Askins giving Andy Hickey a thumbs up there. I think that was just in mention to Andy breaking that story on the page a little bit earlier. Jeff says that Ottman's mistake was expensive, dumb fucking move, deserves it. Agreed,
Yeah,
Jeff.
100%.
Joe Velasquez says it would be hard to have him back with the trust issue that hangs over that. So 100% agreed there, guys. Anybody else have any opinions? Does anybody feel sorry for Ottman and maybe think he deserves another shot? I'm playing devil's advocate here. I don't, but if you do,
I'll be
comment and
be
we'll bring you
shocked.
on.
We like an unpopular opinion, but bring it anyway. Yeah, I'd be shocked if the guys let back.
So we also had Khabib make a statement. Of course, we've all been speculating on whether Khabib is going to actually come out of retirement, depending on what happens this weekend, either in the co-main or the main event, or maybe for Oliveira. That's what Dana White had led us to believe, at least anyway. In his controversial big news announcement, that was a non-announcement. But Khabib has tweeted saying he has no intentions of doing anything that would disappoint his mother. Has that really kind of put a line in the sand there? Does that mean that he's definitely not coming back? Was Dana just kind of blowing it out of proportion and maybe trying to hype it up a bit? What do you reckon, Liz?
If Khabib says so, the whole thing was that Khabib's mother didn't want him to go continue fighting, and he wants to keep his undefeated record and all that kind of thing, right? So the plan was originally, I believe, was that when his father was still alive, that he was going to go to 30-0, then retire. So he's now concerned he's sitting at 29-0, and you really, really, really want to see that number rounded off. For his sake, it's kind of going that way. But the thing is, with this Dana thing, is it a long game? Is he like getting a pry wedge in and just trying to wedge it open, and then over the next month or 6 months or whatever it is, just get that idea in there and
He's wearing him down, like,
plant the seed, as Joe Diaz would say.
I honestly think Dana just went into that meeting expecting to be able to win over Khabib, and when he came out of it, he didn't really know how to react. So he just off the cuff decided to announce that, because he never said Khabib is coming back. He said he's going to see how this card goes. If he's impressed, he might come back. I think Dana just on the fly went, I can't announce he's not coming back because there'll be too much pressure to put a title on the line and with everything involved. It was Khabib actually was talking to Russian media, and that's how the news broke. I don't believe he's going to be talking to Russian media after that meeting and after Dana's announcement that saying he's not coming back. If he is, I'd be very surprised at this point. Certainly, if he came back.
So Kevin O'Sullivan thinks Oliveira's name was mentioned to keep everyone guessing.
Yeah,
just kind of adding some new interest into the whole thing. Yeah,
it's a strange one, and again, this is Dana. I think Dana's going through a mental breakdown or something. I don't know what's going on, but he's certainly causing some rifts and causing a little bit of look. It's typical Dana.
Yeah, he's done that before though. He's kind of he plays hard ball, like fast and loose with the rules and hard ball.
Yep.
So that is typical Dana White. But
take him at his word, if you will.
At your peril.
Yeah. I do want to, before we get into the 257 card, to touch on the press conference, by the way.
Okay. Go for it.
So when we get a McGregor press conference, we just expect McGregor to completely steal the show. And it was a much more subdued McGregor. It was a much more amiable McGregor, the way he was talking to his counterparts on the stage. And as a result of that, two people for me completely stole the show. They were asked limited questions, but Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler, with one line each, completely stole that press conference. Dan Hooker with the Charlie Olives.
Charlie Olives, yeah.
Charlie Olives.
He's got thicker brooms in his closet or something.
He's got thicker brooms in his closet that he has no issue making the weight. Was genius, a quality line.
He's come out of himself a lot in the last couple of weeks, hasn't he?
Massively, and he said he's the one that wanted to shy away from McGregor. I would have loved to seen them go back and forth a little bit because he seems to be well able to talk. And the other one then, of course, was Chandler with talking about the baddest man to the daddest man. I just thought it was a brilliant line. And if you're up on a dais with McGregor and McGregor showing you respect and you make McGregor laugh out loud into a microphone, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
You're getting the right eyeballs on you. And it's just, for me, the two of them completely stole the show.
Yeah, it was interesting. I still think that, okay, I know everybody is kind of saying like McGregor's newfound respectful attitude towards his opponent is refreshing, and like maybe because he's a dad now that this is him turning a new leaf and he's a different man. And I think he's still playing mind games, because the body language, to me, Dustin Poirier is submissive in body language to McGregor. He's one step behind him and everything. So when they did even the square off, McGregor was first down into the stance.
Yeah.
Poirier matched the stance.
Yeah.
McGregor first up out of the stance. Poirier matched that. And then it was like,
and
he's
McGregor smiled and went to shake his hand, which turned it into a pleasant kind of thing then, yeah.
So McGregor's leading the dance, and that to me in kind of mental warfare terms is like a kind of a backhanded compliment. It's like, oh, good boy, you're doing well there. But actually McGregor is psychologically putting himself a level above.
Yeah.
So I don't think this niceness is anything to do with maturity. I think it's just a different level of mind games.
I do honestly believe there is a lot of respect there, though.
I know
McGregor's respectful of all of his opponents and anyone that gets in there, but I do think he's respectful of Poirier as a man.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I'm not doubting that there is a level of respect there, but I just don't think that it's I don't think mind games are over.
Act.
I think that's still part of the mind games.
Yeah.
You know, leading the dances. That's like kind of alpha male kind of power play stuff, like power posing.
Yeah.
You know, they talk about negotiators kind of leading the dance that way, where you kind of mimic other people's movements, breathe at the same rate as them, and then when you have them on your side, then you take them in another direction. I think he's on that level.
Car salesman kind of stuff. Like
I think he's doing that kind of stuff.
Do you think that if you look back to Mayweather and McGregor, when they did their press conferences, I noticed that anytime McGregor really had a go and really went in hard on Mayweather, he smiled, nodded, applauded him, and played off like, yeah, you're a funny little man, kind of. And that similar, that was his approach to the whole thing, like, oh, sure, look, he's a gimmick, he's this, he's that.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe he's taken from that?
The other way around?
But do you think he's taken from that experience and gone, I don't need to be shouting at all these guys now, they have to come shouting at me, and I'm going to sit there and smile and nod. I'm the
I don't think Mayweather was fast enough for him.
No, definitely not.
To come back with the retards.
But he did what he could do best, I think, which was just smile and clap and clap, play the you're my jester, and that seemed to be the role that he was playing in it.
It's kind of like, do you really think this can hurt me? Like, sitting back, just going, this doesn't faze me at all. Like this is grand. Like
he needed subtitles.
So Jeff has said there in
that was a thinker, lads.
Jeff said there, fatherhood has definitely toned former losses. Hang on, I'm missing this now. I'm kind of half reading it and half saying it the same. What am I saying here?
Fatherhood has definitely toned down former loose cannons, Connor and Dustin.
Oh yeah.
Did it to me too. Well done, Jeff.
So Jeff, okay.
Didn't do it to him.
Were you a loose cannon, Jeff? Tell us, what did you do? Who did you attack? Who did you assault? What what bus did you throw a dolly at?
Both get done for slander here.
to be fair, Jeff, Dave is calling me out, but it does calm me down. 110%. I was a complete wild man 8 years ago. So yeah, it does tone you down a bit, alright.
So David Askin said it's 11 out of 10 a valuable price, or 11 to 10. Sorry, Jesus, I'm talking about odds here. It's 11 to 10 a valuable price for a Chandler victory.
Yeah,
I don't know how to calculate odds. I'm an engineer.
11 to 10 would be plus 100.
I can do maths, but I can't do odds.
Or plus 110. So I've had
so
to
is that
learn.
Good or bad? That's good, obviously, because Dave says good, right? So
it's all right.
It's just over evens, like
yeah.
I've had to learn the American odds for our Pro-Am's predictions podcast because obviously catering to the American market. But I've actually learned they're much easier to follow.
Yeah, I can follow the American ones. I just can't follow this fractional one in the UK. I could never do it.
I used to be the opposite. I remember on Blood and Bandage before going on a tirade about how terribly stupid the American betting system was.
That's a tirade for our American audience.
or our English audience, our Irish audience. It's tirade. Yeah,
tirade. I said tirade. Excuse me. I have a degree in English.
Yeah, we've questioned this before, Dave.
A tirade, whatever.
What's your tirade about?
Tirade. No, it was about the American betting system, how terribly stupid it was and convoluted. But having looked into it,
it does make sense.
It does make sense. I'm just more used to the fractional odds. Yeah,
it's millimeters and inches.
Yeah, that kind of way. Yeah, exactly.
So Kevin was just saying there about the body language is all about taking the initiative. So just talking about the difference in body language between Dustin and McGregor there. But yeah, I think personally, I think Poirier has already lost the mental warfare anyway.
But here's the other side of that. I don't think he knows he's losing the mental warfare.
He didn't know the first time either.
That's very true. He went in emotional. Maybe he just subliminally goes in and kind of hailing to McGregor's greatness.
But even his coach said it. Even his coach, I was watching the countdown there earlier today, and even his coach said that he went in, that Poirier went in far too emotional into the first one. Like, and you even listened back to some of the interviews, and he was like, "There's no one I hate more than this guy McGregor," like, and all that kind of stuff. He was gunning for it. I think now he's a bit more mature about how he approaches it. Yeah. But whether he's able to deal with the new McGregor is debatable. Like,
Yeah.
So I suppose let's start breaking down the fights anyway. We have the card up here on screen, so we'll start from the top and we'll work our way down. So, there's plenty to be said about this Poirier and McGregor fight. Plenty to be said, but not a lot that hasn't been said already. Like how many different countdown shows have we got? Embedded shows. We've got BT Sports promos. We've got like every podcast is talking about it. Every TV show is talking about it. Is there anything that we'd like to add? What you reckon?
Oh, 100%. Look, it's it's a fight for me that I know your prediction is 30 seconds. I can't. I just can't get on board with that.
Yeah.
No, I
Because
can't get on board right now. Yeah.
I can honestly, it's the bigger octagon. It's the 30 foot octagon, or 30 meter, 30 foot. Definitely not 30 meter. It's the 30 foot octagon, and I can honestly see Dustin completely disengaging for the first 20 seconds, just to get that breathing space, to get himself for the adrenaline to stop spiking a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I can actually see him engaging in some form of grappling or clinch in the opening round. Now, as Brian Moore said on our podcast yesterday, you're dealing with a man now that's broken someone's orbital in the clinch from shoulder strikes.
Yeah.
So it's a different animal again. There's nowhere safe. But if you're going to go in there and stand at a distance against McGregor and be in awe of him, I mean, it could well be a 30-second, 1 minute knockout. I think he's too intelligent to go and do that right off the bat a second time.
What do you reckon, Dave? Is it going to be 30 seconds? Is it going to be longer than 30 seconds?
No. Well, I hope it's longer than 30 seconds. I don't think it's going to go 30 seconds. I don't think it's going to be another Cowboy thing. Because when you look at the Cowboy fight, that was kind of a different... Cowboy is a different fighter to Dustin, and Dustin is a different animal to Cowboy. Mm-hmm. He's going to leave, and you've heard him speak about it before. He wants to go in there and he wants to leave a blood-stained octagon. He wants to go in and drag it out, because I think there actually is a little bit of doubt in Dustin's mind as to whether he can pull out a victory. A small little kernel of doubt whether he can actually do it. And he wants to prove his worth and raise his stock by showing that he can hang for 4 or 5 rounds, whatever it is, with McGregor. Now, they're both very good strikers. You had Max Holloway coming out saying he's the best boxer in the UFC, and then McGregor coming out laughing at it. And it's just the way that McGregor manages range, the way he it's just weird, kind of magical, kind of silk that McGregor has with range and all that kind of thing. The way he can move in and out, and he can just move straight out of the way of shots. So I think that's going to pose a challenge to Dustin, like you were saying, that the way he's kind of going to be a bit jacked up and a bit adrenaline fueled, and he's going to be a bit. How clear is he going to be thinking throughout the whole thing? How is he going to have to handle the pressure? Connor's going to go in and he does his thing. How can Dustin overcome that and then use his ruggedness, I suppose, and his willingness to throw down against McGregor?
I think the only way is by getting in real close with him. I still think he loses the fighting close, but
he'll last a little bit longer than 30 seconds, you reckon?
He'll last a little bit longer, and he'll find himself a little bit more comfortable in there, because that distance that McGregor controls so well, if you're on the outside of that, you essentially for seconds catch yourself just watching him, and that's exactly what he wants. The minute he sees deer in the headlights is when he strikes.
Yeah.
And the difference between Poirier then and Poirier now, Poirier was a great fighter before the first McGregor fight, make no mistake, and he had some phenomenal performances, even pre-UFC in the WEC. But he hadn't fought like elite competition for a prolonged period of time. That's the difference now with Poirier. He has that mental toughness that he can hang with the very, very best in the world. When I don't think he believed that then. He might have thought, I can be the best in the world, but he didn't know that he had that ability to stay. Whereas now he has that. I just think he's a little bit smarter. He's a little bit more confident in himself. And as opposed to getting like a deer in the headlights, he'll be thinking, all right, how do I make this situation better for myself immediately off the cuff? And he reacts quite well in fights as well.
Do you think, so they both fought Khabib, and they've both gone through that war and that hell and been dragged and drowned by Khabib and his wrestling up against the fence and all that kind of thing. Yeah. Do you think that since Dustin was recently defeated by him and they were both choked out by him, do you think that loss is now an equalizer in their minds, or in at least Dustin's mind?
Yeah, good point.
In Dustin's mind, I think yes.
Yeah.
But if you look at Connor's mind about the Khabib fight, Connor genuinely believes that on any other day he beats Khabib. He thought he knew that he was ill prepared going in for that fight. He was carrying I wouldn't say injuries, but he had injuries through camp, and he wasn't himself going into the fight.
Psychologically, he was all.
And even at that, he took a round, minimal 1 round off of Khabib during a fight that, if the history books now tell it as a one-sided complete whitewash, when if you actually go back and watch the fight, the 3rd round was McGregor's round, and it looked like he was coming on and ready to start to take the fight. Was it the 2nd round or the 3rd round?
3rd round, I believe. Because the 4th round it ended, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, like Conor is coming out of that fight thinking he can beat Khabib. Dustin Poirier came out of that fight and went, he's too fucking good for me. Like,
yeah. So you're saying that
it's
Poirier,
an equalizer for Poirier.
It gives him a bit of confidence to be like, right, look, Khabib beat me, Khabib beat him. It's now me and him to see who's fractionally better than the other. Yeah.
But I do believe that not in Conor's head. I think he still believes he had a far greater performance and could do better still.
Where the comments here are going mad, so we better catch up on
Very
a few of
good.
them. Seth is in to kick our ass again. Seth says
Seth.
I don't think he broke his orbital with shoulder strikes. So that's just it was Brian Moore that said that in the last. So don't kill us, Seth. Right?
Yeah,
we'll put you in touch with Brian Moore.
We're
quoting Brian Moore on that. Cowboy had nothing broken in his loss to Conor. Come on, guys, get it together.
Again, we're quoting
massacred here. Like,
yeah. Well, Seth always whips us around the place here. He's a
perennial
kind of like
commentator.
fact checker, and
he comes in and he's
he doesn't mince his words.
good man.
Yeah, no, we love it. Kevin Sullivan, remember my prediction for a submission victory? You're gonna have to remind me of that, Kevin, because I can't remember who's gonna submit who and in what round. Jeff,
I think he said something about McGregor submitting Poirier.
Oh, optimistic.
Yeah,
Optimistic.
Jeff says, I love both Conor and Dustin. If a stand-up war, Conor wins. If Dustin wraps his neck, he has a great guillotine. Dustin should get Conor to the ground. His BJJ is his best chance. This will not be an easy fight for either.
Here's the thing though. Conor has never been caught in a guillotine and has one of the best defenses of a guillotine. Remember when Chad Mendes caught him in the guillotine?
Yeah, that's the
when
heartbreaker.
Khabib tried to catch him in the guillotine.
The only thing is
The
that
heartbreaker, the gator roll.
Yeah.
the only thing is that exact same escape was the one he tried on Nate Diaz and then got caught.
Nate Diaz, yes.
He got caught. He tried the heartbreaker,
Yeah.
and then got caught with an underhook, mounted, and then
That
was
led to the
taken.
finish.
That led to the finish. So,
But again, we look at different grapplers, and if you look at Poirier's grappling, he leans heavy on those submissions, darts, chokes, guillotines, and I don't think you're going to catch Conor on one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And even Poirier himself has come out and said that in relation to the Conor Khabib fight, that Conor has great takedown defense. And if you watch that fight back, which I have done recently, it's fairly impressive for someone who's predominantly a striker. It's fairly impressive.
His grappling is massively underrated.
Yeah. Which is another point that Ariel Helwani was making, was that he came out and he said that Conor McGregor is actually one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, I've seen that a couple of times this week. People kind of talking about how he's underrated because of his brash talking.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants him to kind of like, who's this upstart that comes from Ireland and runs his mouth without proving anything. And then like every fight, had he shut up and said nothing and done what he did, he would be everybody would be all about him. But because he went and talked first, he was always going to be catching up to his own
goalposts are moving every
Exactly.
fight.
But you have to factor in as well is a McGregor loss is bigger than anybody else's loss.
Oh yeah.
If McGregor loses a fight because of the coverage that it gets and everything like that,
and because of the pressure he puts on himself as well with his own kind of hype.
Do or die kind of situation, like, you know. Yeah.
But then that's it's high stakes, high risk, high reward. That's why he's got the money.
Yeah.
So Seth is picking up on with you about
Good man.
you said that Dustin wasn't tested in the UFC until Conor.
no, I said that he was tested before.
Okay.
And I just said he hadn't continually competed against the best in the world.
Yeah, so I still think he's taking issue with you. So he said, what? Question mark. Korean Zombie? Question mark. Cub Swanson? Question mark. They were high level. Again, at this time, Dustin was Connor's first true test in the UFC.
Okay,
I agree with Seth there on that one. I think.
no,
I think I would.
Go back to then. Korean Zombie and Cub Swanson were also guys that were in and around top 15 guys at that time. Time has proven that they're guys that can hang around at the top level, but mentally preparing for those fights, they weren't guys that were elite fighters at that point. That's what I'm trying to say, because we're talking about the mentality of Poirier going into the fights, and Poirier wasn't fighting top 5 guys, and he's talked about it quite a bit coming up to this fight, about now he's fought top 5 guys for the last 5 years in a row, and that's the difference. That's my point. It's just a mental point from Poirier that he wasn't fighting top 5 guys continually back to back to back then.
Can I can I also respond to Seth? Because no, Seth, I agree with you on the point you just made that Poirier was McGregor's first big test. I think he was. I think that was a good benchmark for him to think. But I've just looked up here, lads, and you can see here this is on MMA Mania, and it's a press release from the medical suspensions from the McGregor versus Cowboy fight. And it was Donald Cerrone suspended until July 17th unless cleared by maxillofacial doctor for nasal fracture and mild orbital fracture. Suspended at minimum until February 18th with no contact until February 9th.
That was the Cerrone thing, was it?
Yes, so there was a orbital fracture.
So, in fact, we have got our shit together now. We were still only quoting, though.
Yeah, we didn't. I didn't know that anyway.
We've got our fact checker in studio tonight. We're fucking
Pull
we're
that
golden.
up, Dave.
You've got a few more to answer there, Paul.
Oh Jesus Christ! They're coming at me tonight. Go on, read them out to me there, because
So Seth said that Zombie got a title shot after beating Poirier. He was top 5. That was a #1 contender fight. Cerrone said himself that he had nothing broken. UFC pushing false info.
That's MMAmania.com. It's coming from the Athletic Commission. Either way, the Zombie thing, I know he was a top 5 fighter, but you're missing the main point that I'm trying to make. I'm not saying that Dustin Poirier, because I did say that he'd had amazing fights against amazing fighters. It's just the continual, and it's the narrative that he's spinning this time, not just me. He said that for the last 5 years he's competed against top 5 fighters back to back to back to back, and that's where his mental fortitude has come from, as opposed to before the first McGregor fight. Yes, he'd fought a top 5 opponent who went on to fight for the title, but he hadn't competed at that level continuously.
Anyway, has Dustin Poirier got any chance in this fight?
It's funny, myself and Brian talked about this.
Yeah,
You're talking about a guy who's just after having an interim title win against one of the greatest of all time, Max Holloway. You have a guy that went in against Khabib. Everyone beats Khabib, but came back and looked phenomenal against Hooker.
Yep.
Which was the most impressive part about that.
That was my fight of the year as well.
That was a savage fight. In fairness,
And that guy is not being picked by anybody.
That's what I meant. I know he has a chance to win in a fight, but like it seems that like there's nobody like
all
picking him
pundits
to win.
are
and
picking
all,
McGregor.
Yeah, it
It's
seems like a
crazy.
foregone conclusion. We're talking about like is Khabib come back to fight McGregor, but nobody's asked is Khabib coming back to fight Poirier.
I'll
It
tell
doesn't
you
even
this
seem
much.
like a it. Well, I know he's only beaten him recently, but you know, is it disrespectful to Poirier?
I don't believe he'll win, just my opinion, and I think McGregor wins. But if Poirier wins, does this become one of the bigger upsets? Even though it shouldn't be based on ranking and based on Poirier's previous performances, does it become one of the big upsets in the UFC? Let us know.
well, my opinion on that would be that any time McGregor loses, it's an upset. Even if you're like even if there's a good chance he's going to be beaten, like so the Diaz one fight.
Yeah,
Right.
that was an upset.
That was an upset, right? But you come in and even Khabib and everyone kind of expected Khabib to win, except for the hardcore Irish fans and all the rest of it, But even when the inevitable happened and Khabib beat McGregor, everyone was like, "Oh my God, it's."
See, I don't think that was an upset. And similarly, even though McGregor won the fight, I think if McGregor had gone in and lost to either Mendes or Aldo, I don't think it would have been this, oh my God, upset.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot of people saying, "We told you so."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think people would have gone, how did this happen? Do you know what I mean? So there have been a couple of fights that he's been in where not every single person was going, well, he'll probably win this fight. But it seems to be, if you look at any website, anywhere that people are covering this fight, the picks all seem to be going in McGregor's favour.
Yeah. So predictions. I want to clarify my 30-second knockout prediction. I had this in my head before the embedded.
Brian called you out bad.
It was nothing to do with the fact that he hit the Bob dummy in his hotel room in Abu Dhabi with a spinning hook kick. I think so. The reason I'm picking 30 seconds and the reason I'm picking the hook kick is because that was the first strike he threw against Poirier in the first fight, and it just whistled past over the top of his head. And knowing Conor and knowing how much a perfectionist he is, and even himself and James Gallagher are similar in this regard. They go out, like James Gallagher had like a guillotine finish there, like without even being hit or without throwing a strike, and after the fight he was disappointed in his performance.
Yeah.
And Conor will be the same, even with the with his flawless performances, that like his Eddie Alvarez performance, his Cerrone performance, he still mulls over the things like for hours on end, trying to figure out how can he do it better next time, and I think that hook kick is haunting him since the first fight 6 years ago, and I don't think he's going to want to try anything else except that first. Look at what happened with the Nate Diaz fight. He lost Nate Diaz. He wanted an immediate rematch at the same weight.
Yeah,
I think this is a rematch of that kick versus Dustin's head. He wants to do the same kick in the same order, and this is a big if he lands it, I think it could be the beginning of the end. And that's what I mean by a 30-second knockout.
Well, if he lands that, it could be knockout straight away.
Well, you see,
I don't think it would be a knockout. I think it would wobble him like it wobbled Cerrone, and then the follow-up would be a TKO. That's what I mean by under 30 seconds.
I think if he lands it, it's a Barboza Terry Adam job.
You see, well, if he does the reverse spin, like what he did
Poirier
on the Bob,
will naturally duck.
Yeah, but if he throws it like he did in the first fight, then that's like a more like a karate hook kick where it's his lead leg. He was in a southpaw stance, lead leg, and there's no kind of momentum on the spin. It's just the weight of your leg. That will hurt people. Like in karate tournaments that I've competed in, I've thrown that kick. It hurts people. I broke someone's jaw with one at one stage, but it's not a knockout shot. It's a damaging shot, but it's not a knockout shot. If you add the spin, a la Edson Barboza Terry Adam, it is a knockout shot. But without the spin, it's not a knockout shot. But it'll certainly wobble Dustin and send him on his heels, and then it all ends from there. But that's my prediction. I could be completely wrong, as I've been on most of my picks since we started doing this podcast.
I wonder, will I still have my magic?
Yeah. Somehow Dave was picking without any. Preparation. Dave was picking better than me.
I just went with the gut
on the Blood and Bandage podcast. So, yeah.
But like a good another thing to consider there when you're talking about the kicks and the spinning kicks and all that, and what I got from Dan Hardy was that he compared McGregor to a spear, and that all his skill set is the handle of the spear, and his left hand is the spear tip, and the entire function of all his training and everything else is to funnel or to channel or to manipulate his opponent to set up that one shot that's going to send him into the shadow realm.
A lot of the kicks, are just to position his opponent.
Yeah, and the way he moves off in circles is just to...
Well, he does throw certain kicks, like the one against Cerrone, like the original one against Poirier, to hurt his opponent. Yeah. So what's your prediction?
My prediction is round 2 knockout for Conor McGregor.
Very similar. I have McGregor either last minute of the first round or first 2 minutes of the second round.
So none of us see it going the distance.
No,
and none of us see it going to Poirier, which is unfortunately for Poirier, but we've gone through that.
Look, these colours don't run.
So we have we have a few comments to catch up on again here. So Seth said that it'd be terrible for McGregor's legacy if he loses. Agreed. Jeff says what he, aka Dustin, did versus Hooker and Gaethje and Max gives this guy a chance versus anyone. Major upset? No. He disagrees. Would this be an upset? He disagrees with that. Different man from the first Conor fight. I do think Conor wins in a war, though. His counters are savage and eventually hurts DP. Is that double penetration or Daniel Poirier?
Daniel Poirier.
Dustin Poirier. My prediction: 4th round TKO.
That's the other Lafayette
by DP. 4th round TKO by Conor McGregor. I think. I was trying to be funny there, but it didn't really come off.
Penetration.
Okay, so Joe Velasquez. I'm not seeing the 60-second fight, aka the don't go to the fridge type of fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people predicting a long war as well.
I hope so.
Joe's in that. Yeah, I actually do want to see a longer fight. I mean, I enjoy watching like both Dustin and Conor fight. I'd love to see a longer fight. Definitely. I just don't see it going that way. No. Thomas Lan. I think that's Thomas, right?
Thomas Lan, one of our newer members on the MMA Opinion.
Nice. The Weasel made a great observation that apart from Khabib, the two lightweight losses for Poirier were to McGregor and Johnson. Snipers pick at him from the outside. When he lunges in with his hips squared, he gets countered.
Who's the Weasel?
I have no idea. I was asking. I was
Batman villain or something.
I'd say maybe an MMA outlet, maybe a podcast or something.
Do you know the way he was
very possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was about to say the way Conor calls people, you know, especially during a Mayweather fight, you weasel.
It reads as if the Weasel is some kind of like the schmo or something.
Oh, he's a YouTuber.
Oh, right. There you go.
Okay.
Cool.
The beauty of comments coming in, the way the people are just
this is fantastic,
checking us.
Fair, like, yeah.
I know, yeah, we're under fierce pressure here, like. So yeah, good point, Thomas. So like the accurate strikers, like the snipers as you call them. Yeah. Well, that I mean, Poirier's style is a lot of hooking punches, you know, and he does lunge a lot. He does kind of lean forward and kind of leap with his punches. So yeah, I mean, if one of my fighters was fighting somebody like that, I'd be saying focus on the straight shots down the middle. You know, the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line, and you're gonna end up beating those wild kind of, I won't say wild punches because I think that kind of doesn't do justice to Poirier's boxing, but the hooking style is beaten by straight line style. Jeff is asking what you guys do on your own time is your own business. Lol, DP.
Cheers, Jeff.
Oh, nice.
So nice. Seth's just confirming that Weasel is a YouTuber. He breaks down fights. I must go check him out, actually. I like Sonny Brown a lot. I watch a lot of his breakdowns. I think he's very, really good. Actually, comment in if there's any other good YouTubers. I know Seth has a good channel on breaking down fights as well. So be nice to get maybe a post on the MMA Opinion page with some of the top YouTube channels that break down fights. I think we could all learn a lot from that.
Yeah.
And of course, check out the MMA Opinion on YouTube. We're a growing industry.
Absolutely.
We need to get into the co-main event.
Yeah, we're like 3/4 of an hour into our podcast and we're still on the first fight.
Yeah,
that's David's fault.
Yeah,
you're doing your marathon.
The gift of the gab, boy. Kish the Blarney Stone.
So in the co-main event, we have another massive lightweight about. My biggest issue with this fight is that it's not also a 5-rounder. I think because
I actually didn't notice that until now.
Yeah, I think because of the implications in lightweight at the moment, this should 100% be for 5 rounds.
Yeah.
We've seen what Dan Hooker did in 2 5-round fights last year. 2 candidates for Fight of the Year. You've Michael Chandler making his debut, notorious for wars. And that's kind of been the outline of his career. Some of his greatest performances have been in these crazy wars with Eddie Alvarez and more. It's a tough one to call because like there's so many factors here. You have Dan Hooker, who everyone now sees as a striker. Any kind of person that's been watching him over the last 2-3 years sees him as the striker. But he didn't get the nickname the Hangman for nothing. And you have Chandler, who everyone perceives as this NCAA wrestler. But Chandler scraps with the best of them. Serious power in an overhand right. Loves to throw that overhand right and lead into a takedown. But then you have Hooker's knees up through the middle are some of the most vicious in MMA.
Yes. Yeah.
There's so much going on in this fight. It could end after a minute. It could be a 15-minute all-out war. It's an impossible one to call.
I'd prefer the latter. I really want to see
I can see it going 15 minutes, but weirdly, and I call this on the Pro-Am prediction, and I'm going to give my prediction away right off the bat. I've a sequence in my head that I can see happening. Chandler is a very wide stance for a wrestler. Hooker loves a leg kick. I can see, because Chandler is not going to try and go for a straight takedown in the open without trying to catch something first. I can see him trying to catch a leg kick, go for a takedown, and I can actually see Dan Hooker submitting him. It's a weird call, 12-1 plus 1,200 bet, but...
David, what's your prediction, or how do you see the fight going?
Right. So, my knowledge of Mike Chandler is superficial at best. You know, so I've always relied on you for a lot of the Bellator stuff before.
Like himself, superficial at best.
At best. Best.
There's burns going on left, right, and centre.
Oh, listen, we're only getting warmed up now. It's but look, my knowledge of Mike Chandler is superficial at best. I do know he's a very, very renowned fighter, coming from Bellator and where he was cleaning up. I know his skill level is on par with the UFC. He deserves to be in the UFC. My main concern with Chandler is that he was the backup for, what was he the backup for? He was
Khabib and Gaethje,
right? So that was in Abu Dhabi as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that was a while back now as well.
Well, it was the last Fight Island.
October.
The last Fight
Yeah.
Island, so October. Jeez,
Yeah.
it's been that long. Yeah. So that was October. Now he's had a layoff for that long, so he's been kind of out of the loop a bit.
And for a while previous to that as well.
For a while previous to that as well. So I do think there's kind of a bit of I'm not going to say ring rust because that's a completely overused term, but there's a bit of he's been a bit sedentary in a little bit. Now the counter to that psychologically is that this is his big entry into the UFC. He's got a point to prove, because there's a lot of people talking, there's a lot of people saying that he can't hang with the UFC boys or whatever. He's got a big point to prove, so I think he's very, very highly motivated, just as Dan is. I think Dan is very, very motivated, but Dan's on a roll. Dan he's got fuel to burn. Like he's going for it, and if he gets a win over Chandler, that cements him then at the upper echelon of the fight game.
Does it though? This is my question.
Does it give him the next title shot? No, does it not put him? Is this not a number one?
See, I don't know, because I think
don't
this
know where
is
Oliveira sits in this as well. Like,
this is it. I think because of outcome of this is lopsided. So if Michael Chandler comes in, and let's say he smokes Hooker, we know that Chandler belongs in the top 5 of the division and can take on anyone, and might be a shout for the next one in line. If Dan Hooker beats Chandler, all the talk will be Chandler was never belonged in the top 5, top 6.
Yeah, and that's unfair.
Who's he
then on
fighting
Hooker,
next?
yeah.
Hooker coming off a loss as well. This is a very tough one for Hooker to take on, in the sense of stakes. And he said it himself. He was the only one. He said anyone above him didn't want the fight. He said it in the press conference. He was the only one that said yes to the fight. It's a strange one. What I want to ask though, for both of you, do you think for someone of Chandler's experience and being a former 2-time champion in Bellator, do you think UFC jitters are going to be a thing?
no, I don't think so. I think first off, him coming out and being a stand-in for the first Gaethje and Khabib fight will have gotten rid of a lot of that. As he said himself, he got to work with a lot of the background staff.
It feels a little bit more like at home.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, he's been a champion. He doesn't really have, like, whereas a lot of guys have yet to prove their legacy. You know, he has a legacy. As you say, he's 2 times champion in Bellator. I mean, he's knocked out Benson Henderson. He's beaten Benson Henderson twice, I think. Yeah. He's got wins over Eddie Alvarez, a former UFC champion.
Yeah.
Will Brooks as well. I think he dethroned Will Brooks, I think, if memory serves.
As far as I know, Will Brooks beat him twice.
Okay.
and then bounced to the UFC, and we saw what happened to Will Brooks.
Yeah, he just flopped in, didn't he? But so I like, to answer your question, I don't think jitters are going to be an issue here.
Yeah, Dave,
what was the question again?
Do you think UFC jitters are applicable
yeah.
here with someone of his experience?
Well,
I'm going to throw some comments up on screen while you're talking there, just so
Yep.
people can read them as well.
I suppose I kind of did make the point that, you know, he's got the first fight in the UFC there, and he's going to be, you know, it's a do or die situation for him. I don't think the UFC jitters per se are going to like coming in and having to fighting this high level competition under the bright lights. I don't think that's going to be such an issue for him. I just think that there's a lot of pressure on him personally, maybe for himself and from the MMA community and from maybe the UFC as well, to win. And to win decisively and emphatically.
Yeah.
I just do think there's pressure on him. He's not going to be nervous, but there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Like UFC jitters is probably the wrong way of putting it, but I think first appearance in the UFC with a lot of eyes, more eyes than he ever would have gotten any other card, and just whatever. Even on the Khabib card, he'd have got less eyes. This is the frightening thing. But to be going in there against a really tough opponent, a stylistic tough matchup. And there's mountains of pressure on his shoulders going into this one.
Definitely. 100%.
So I just want to give my breakdown on two things that you mentioned there. So Dan Hooker's chokes.
Yeah.
Yes, deadly. Like, I mean, as you say, he's been called the hangman for...
He snatches them real quick.
He does. Absolutely. 100%. No argument there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was the knees up the middle, right? So here's my two things. Chandler is a Division 1 All-American wrestler.
Yeah.
So when he shoots for double legs, he's got the correct... I mean, he's been bred into the correct posture, which means that his hips are in, his head is up. He's not chest parallel to the floor, head down. So I don't think he's as susceptible to the chokes, the guillotines in particular. I don't think he's as susceptible to those as other fighters that Dan has caught in the past are.
Yeah.
The other thing is the knees. We saw Hooker time beautifully. He timed Ross Pearson with a knee up through the middle. Now, the difference between Ross Pearson and Chandler is the explosion, is the explosive entry speed. Like, Chandler doesn't wade into distance to throw his overhand right. He's literally fired out of a cannon at you.
Yeah.
He's like an angry bird.
And it goes from right hand, which as it's connecting, he's already down on your legs for the takedown. Yeah.
So I don't see Hooker having the speed to catch Chandler on the way in with the knee. I think he might aim for it, but he'll slightly be too late each time.
Yeah.
And I don't think he'll catch him on with the chokes. And as a result, I'm predicting Chandler takes this one. And I think it's just going to be pure violence.
I do want to just counter that for a second, and the fact that that's the reason I said that I don't see him going for a power double or power single out in the open right away against Hooker, based on the knees and the fact that he's dangerous on the ground. But when catching the kick, he'll be at a further distance and catching the kick and trying to power through then from there into a takedown would make him slightly more susceptible to a choke.
Yeah, agreed.
What if he takes the leg?
And it's just the fact that I this sequence in my head, I can see him getting frustrated with leg kicks because he does have that wide stance and he's so heavy on the lead leg. I can just see him getting frustrated, trying to catch one and going in, and like we said, Hooker snatches those necks.
Yeah, no, I see your point, and it's certainly it is one of the paths to victories that Hooker's got. I just think that the level of wrestling out of Chandler and the posture that's bred into him, will be very, very hard to break down. Like we're like here in Ireland, we have like a large proportion of striking would be our base. You know, a lot of kids growing up in Ireland would be trained in boxing or karate taekwondo. You know, we'd be heavily striking based, and then jiu-jitsu on top of that. Wrestling not so much, right? It's something that obviously it's been a weakness of Irish fighters in the past, right?
Yeah.
You talk to any, I mean, this is now talking to non MMA guys. You talk to a boxing coach and in Ireland, that is, right? Not in the States now, but in Ireland, and you say, what would you do if somebody is going to come in and double leg you? Say, oh, I'll just uppercut them. Yeah, as if you could. It seems like that would be the easiest thing in the world to do if you have a purebred boxer who has never dealt with a high level wrestler. And I just think that that's the same when it comes to hookers, guillotines, and knees up the middle. I think Chandler's wrestling is at a different level to what he's faced in the past.
And there's no doubt, there is absolutely no doubt that he has those two picked out as tools of hookers to watch out for when entering for takedowns.
Yeah, reverse game plan.
I have no doubt in my mind that he's prepared for that.
Yep.
It's just, look, it's something that I have in my head. You know me, I got all these wrong anyway. It doesn't really matter, but it's just a sequence that I've seen in my head as a possibility, and I'm too stubborn to. Well,
last week was my first week getting two of the main and the co-main correct out of all of the podcasts that we've done. I got Chiesa and who was in the co-main. I can't remember.
Mooner. No, you picked Mooner Lazez, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I picked
Warley
Alves but I thought he was going to guillotine him.
Oh, you did.
I didn't expect him to kick him in the ribs 3 times in a row.
Yeah. Oof.
That was mad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So just catching up on some comments here again. Jesus, lads, you're flying it tonight. Fair play to you. You're typing faster than I can read. Jeff says, would love to see Chandler beat Hooker, but Dan's stand-up and length will prove to be too much. Hooker by unanimous decision. Kevin Sullivan says, 50-50 between distance control and reach. How fast can one throw and the other close distance and pressure?
Yeah.
Joe Velasquez, agree, Coleman could have been a 5-rounder. The outcome of this fight is tricky. Had saying that I have Hooker winning TKO in the 3rd round. A TKO by Hooker in the 3rd. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Thomas says, giving Hooker the edge, he has faced tougher competition overall in a stacked lightweight division. The reach and chin of Hooker would be very hard to overcome.
Yeah.
I don't know, will Hooker's chin hold up to a Chandler overhand? That's there's some aggression and power behind that. But
Hooker's only been finished at once, remember, and that was
Barboza.
Vicious body work by Barboza.
Yeah.
We've seen Hooker's chin hold up against Felder in a war, against Poirier in a war.
Because there was a narrative about that before, wasn't there? That Dan Hooker doesn't have a chin. That it was kind of a bit weak.
It was just people were questioning that was it a bit sus because he had wobbled a few times in fights, but he'd never been taken out of there.
So said that I think we're talking about Chandler here. He should have won the first Will Brooks fight, and he should have won the second Alvarez fight. Both split decision losses.
Yeah.
So again, just proving how tough Chandler is,
and those wars defined him in Bellator as well. By the way, that like. There was a period of 4 or 5 years where you could not miss a Michael Chandler fight. It was just fireworks.
Come here, lads. We
have to rattle through the rest of the card.
All right, so
and we'll just quickly shout at them and make our picks.
Pick ones that kind of stand out, and we'll come back to it another time or something. Well, we're not going to come back to it. We're not going to come back to it.
We'll talk
quick
about
fire
it.
round.
We'll talk about it very briefly in the post fight because we'll probably be talking about McGregor and Poirier for another 40 minutes. So
Jessica Ike, Joanne Calderwood.
Phenomenal fight.
125. What have we got?
Yeah, look, this is a one that JoJo has not really shown her best in the UFC. If you go back to pre-UFC, JoJo let her hands go a lot, and she had that Muay Thai style. She was very dangerous, loved striking game, and she's been a bit hesitant. We talked about this before the podcast. She's been very hesitant, and she's been dominated by grapplers. Now, Jessica Eye isn't afraid to get in there and strike with anyone. But I see an easy path to victory here for Jessica Eye if she gets a takedown and just dominate and control JoJo. I'd love to see the JoJo of old. I'd love to see her take more chances and get in there and just flow. But I see a decision for Jessica Eye here.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. I think the one thing I'd add to that is that JoJo coming from as a UK striker, UK striker, and it wasn't until she hit the UFC that she suddenly had to deal with these like way tougher grapplers than she ever had to face on the UK scene, which is that's a problem in for UK fighters in the over the past few years. Now, luckily, as I've talked about in previous podcasts as well, the IMAF tournaments for the amateur athletes coming through now having to fight Russians, Kazakhstanis, Eastern European,
those Dagestanis,
Americans, the next generation of pros from the UK who have that IMAF experience
And
won't
Ireland.
suffer as much from this. But Jojo, unfortunately, has had to play catch up with a very, very strong grappling game in her UFC career.
And unfortunately, it made her massively hesitant.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's nothing
would
that
do.
will slow your striking down more than fear of being taken down.
Yeah.
Do you know? Because if you're taken down by a strong wrestler and you can't get off your ass, that is soul destroying. Like we've gone through it so many times at the IMAFs. I remember Pally Han's first fight. He fought a Russian over in Romania, and literally it was like he'd light his opponent up on the feet. 2 seconds later, he's on his ass. He works his way all the way back up. 2 seconds later, he's on his ass, works his way up, and it was just non-stop back and forth like that for the whole fight, and it eventually loses a decision. And there's just nothing more frustrating, and it makes you hesitant to throw any strikes at all. Then,
Of course, yeah.
so yeah, I would agree with you on this one. I think Jessica I takes the takedown and maybe sub in the third.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to go with Jessica as well, simply because of experience as well. Like obviously, I would like to see Joanne Collingwood pull out the victory in that one. But look, I'm kind of 50-50 on this one. I don't have any strong feelings either way. But if the safe bet for me, I reckon, is Jessica.
yeah. I do like just as well the last fight, it's not actually the last fight, not main card anymore. But Amanda Ribas versus Marina Rodriguez. Ribas is certainly one to watch out for in that strawweight division, which is on fire at the moment. She's on a 5-fight win streak. Her only loss in the UFC, her only loss is to Polyana Viana, pre-UFC times. She has some big wins there. Emily Whitmire, Mackenzie Dern, Randa Marcos, Paige Van Zandt. And she's kind of hitting her stride now. I can see her being a contender for real in 2021. So Rodriguez has it all to do. She's fought tougher opponents, arguably, but I just see this one going Ribas as well.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Mariana. I have to, or Marina Rodriguez. I'm not familiar with her, so I would have to bow to your superior knowledge in this. And I'm going to hide behind you on this one.
Like, look, she's a very tough girl. She came in 10-0, and she's gone 2-1-2 in the promotion, and the 2 draws were very close bouts. Could have gone either way. Arguably won the first draw, and arguably lost the second one for me. But yeah, she's looked impressive against tough competition. But I just think Amanda Ribas, with the momentum and everything, will get it done.
Do you think that there's this resurgence in women's MMA?
Massively.
Yeah.
You look at that strawweight division is absolute fire at the moment. It's one of my favourite divisions in the UFC.
Yeah, and we've been talking about the young guns coming through. Like there's a series of, like, you know, girls in, like, between the ages of 19 and 23.
Yeah.
And like they're not just like, okay, I think we say like 3 or 4 years ago, women's MMA was where male MMA was maybe a decade previous to that, where you have...
I would say even sooner. I think late 90s.
Yeah.
That's where women's MMA was.
Where you had specialists.
Yeah.
You had specialists, and then a lot of people who were kind of a little bit mismatched in the divisions. So we had the likes of Ronda Rousey just starching girls. You had the likes of Cyborg just knocking people out. But this new generation coming through, they are all rounders, and they're tough. They've got great jiu-jitsu, great wrestling, great striking. They're athletes.
As well, if you go back to men's
we're the
MMA,
golden era of women's MMA right now.
Yeah.
late 90s, early 90s, it was the heavier weights.
Yeah,
and you had people fighting up there that didn't belong up there at all, but they were the weights that
Hugo
everyone
Sanchez
fought
at
at.
middleweight.
Yeah, but that actually happened in the UFC as well. I mean, you even look at Jessica Andrade fought at bantamweight to start her career, then moved down to strawweight. Now has found her home at flyweight, and there's a lot of that going on. But again, it wasn't until the lighter division started to come through. They were quicker, more well-rounded, more entertaining to watch for a lot of the time. And we're seeing this again with the women and the 25 and 15 for me. 25 is a little bit light right now, but with so many coming through at 15, we're going to see those crossovers, and both those divisions will be on fire in 2 or 3 years' time.
Tomas Lan says that Marina has a lot of decisions. Ribas should be able to use her ground skills and speed advantage. So
Fully
he's
agree,
going for Ribas on that one.
Yep.
So, okay, any other fight that stands out on the card? We have this fight between Frivola and Sarukian,
Yes.
which has been made at the last minute due to the Ottoman and another that whole crisis that we talked about at the start, and another fighter
Ottoman is
missing
later,
weight.
yeah.
So this is kind of like 24 hours notice type of fight. This is like an old school kind of like step up at the last minute. Yeah.
So what's weird about this is I thought that Azaitar was going to come out and be an absolute nightmare for Favola. Just knockout power. Favola has great movement and he's in and out and he switches things up and he's very well rounded. But I just thought he's susceptible to fall into traps, and I would have seen Azaitar taking him out of there maybe in the first round. Not only did this work out for Favola in the sense that he's for me he's dodged a bullet here, but I think Sarukian is a far more favourable matchup for him. So he's got the favourable matchup. No, don't get me wrong, Sarukian's tough. He's a win over Oban Mercier.
It's easy for you to say.
For our American viewers. And his only losses to Islam Makhachev. So he's a very tough guy. But he's missed weight as well, so Favola gets 20% of his purse too.
It's just a great weekend for Favola.
Well, look, if he comes out on top, it is anyway.
Yeah.
But fair play to Favola, because a new opponent on 22 hours notice and the guy misses weight. And you still go, yeah, fuck it, I'm getting in there.
I think after doing all that travelling and getting into the fight island and doing all the bubble stuff and quarantining and everything that goes with it, I don't think anybody will turn down any fight.
But he would have been paid.
That is true, but you still, I mean, your career is on hold until you fight. You're only as good as your last fight, and you know.
I know that, but look, getting to a certain level, and they're in lightweight, a division that's on fire, eyes on them, and an opportunity here to get to move up that ladder. They're certainly not near 15 just yet, but
taking that fight just takes a bit of balls. So that's good optics, I think, for for the lads whoever takes a fight on short notice like that. It is good optics.
Yeah, to both of them. To be fair, but more eyes on him right now anyway with all this shit going on. So the only other two fights really quickly I want to touch on, 'cause I'm being a pain now, I'm way over, but Sarah McMahon, Juliana Pena, phenomenal fight at bantamweight. McMahon
two tough ladies.
McMahon coming in with that wrestling background, and we've been saying it for so long, the potential of Pena and Pena's wrestling. This could be a women's grappling match for the ages. Neither girl is spectacular on the feet, let's be honest about it. Pena has some nice boxing. McMahon can hang there a little bit, and she's tough as nails. But if this one goes to the mat, it should be very interesting to see who controls most of the grappling exchanges. And the other one is Brad Tavares versus Antonio Carlos Jr., striker versus grappler, both two stablemates now in the UFC. Just very interested to see the outcome of that one. And it's
really, are they in the same camp? Is it?
Huh?
Did you say they're in the same camp, stablemates?
Staple mates.
Oh, staple. Okay, yeah.
As in they're in the UFC for a long time.
Yeah. For our American viewers.
I was gonna jump into the Juliana Pena thing and be like, what's your man's name? TriStar. Faraz Sahabi. Faraz Sahabi wants to know your location.
So a lot, like we haven't even got to the end of the card. It's a cracker of a card, but I mean,
phenomenal.
Nobody wants to be listening to us for any more than an hour. I'm impressed that people have stayed on for this long. I'll be honest. And I think this has been the most comments we've gotten on any episode so far. And
it's a McGregor week.
Yeah.
Well, this is true. Yeah. This is true. And like we appreciate everybody for commenting in, and we always love our feedback. We don't mind at all when Seth kicks our ass. We love it.
We look forward to it.
We look forward to it, and so thanks for everybody for tuning in and commenting. Don't forget, if you have a YouTuber account that breaks down fights and gives some feedback or not feedback, but breakdowns and analysis, I think we do well to put up a post on the MMA Opinion about that. Maybe the top 10 breakdown YouTube channels. That would be a great post. So if you have one, comment in. Let us know who would you recommend. Other than that, have we got anything else to talk about, or are we good?
Yeah, I do want to touch on, even though we got no love for it, we're going to go ahead and do a fight companion anyway tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah.
So on the page, as per normal, the way we cover the results in the comment section below posts, We're going to do that for the prelims, and then we're going to go live for the main. And in these comments that you're commenting in now, that's where we're going to post our results. And also, look, if you watch some of it or watch all of it, we're going to be commenting along with the fights, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with it too.
Bit of crack. And one thing that we said we will do for the week after is we're going to do a fight companion for one of the first 5 UFCs. So either UFC 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. We're going to stick that on screen here in the studio. We'll invite people to have it on their iPad or their TV at home and watch it with us, because I was watching it back after you talked about Paul Varland's last week's episode. I went back and watched all of his fights. Man, there's some dodgy haircuts back then. I think we're gonna have some crack with that. And
there's no fights next week, so we're gonna have a little bit of fun. We hope you join us for it. And look, it's something a bit different anyway to be tuning into while there's no fights.
Yep. David Doran, thanks a million for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been a blast from the past.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's been brilliant.
Those dulcet tones from the Blood and Bandage MMA podcast have come back again.
Yeah.
Did you set his audio at medium to high pitched?
I said it at high pitched and small balls.
Have you said Have you said it to Northside Cork City?
Yeah.
Jesus. But yeah, thanks for having me on, lads. It's been great to see the studio again in its evolved, incredible form. So yeah, it's been great. Thanks very much.
Good stuff.
Awesome. Guys, thanks very much. We'll see you tomorrow night.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
Are you still drunk right now? Are you still drunk? What's going on? This is blue screen shit.
Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass. I pulled that sumbitch out and I beat him over the head with it.
You can't stop us at Beard Express. Choo-choo, motherfuckers.
If he was a girl, you would say he has a badonkadonk.
I'm cool with all